Hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I work for the Central Arkansas Library System and I work at the Nixon branch in Jacksonville. This is the Crafting with Opal program that I do on Thursday nights at 7, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to sew a easy fleece hat. I've got the pattern for it. I downloaded it off of the internet. So if you watch this tutorial and you're interested in trying it out, just let me know. You can call me at the library and I can always email the pattern to you if you'd like to try it. And it comes in different sizes. So the one I'm going to make tonight is, I think it's a medium, an adult medium. You are going to measure the circumference around your head to figure out what size that you'll need to use of the pattern. It comes in quite a few sizes. It looks like, I'm looking at the pattern right now. It comes in like 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18 months, and then it goes up to 5 to 8 years old, 8 to 12 years old, and then they have an adult medium, adult large, adult extra large. But they all have to do with whatever size you measure your head, and that ends up being, now they'll tell you which one of those patterns you need to cut out to do the hat. This one is not going to have a lining in it. It's just a very basic, simple fleece hat that you can make. And I'm going to go ahead and switch this around so we can get started. And this is the fabric I'm going to be using. I'll move things around just a little bit so you can see, well, maybe. Make it hard to get in here. This is the size that I cut out for mine. They actually have it color-coded. When you print it out, it's color-coded on the different sizes. So you, I printed it in color first, and then I made extra photocopies in black and white and figured out what size I needed to cut it down to for mine. And this is the adult medium, which is 32 inches. And what you're going to do is you're going to need at least 1/3 yard of fleece material for it. And I already kind of cut mine down just a little bit. And so you can kind of see the top and the bottom. I folded it in half. And you're going to have, what a good idea to do is to just go ahead and have the wrong sides face, or the right sides facing each other when you fold the fabric in half. And then you're going to line your pattern up on here, kind of depending on if you look at the design of this one. I'm going to line it up with these straight lines to help keep it kind of straight looking. And I'm going to pin it in place. But this is two pieces of fabric, and it's just folded in half. And I'm just going to pin all the way through. Well, the way I'm going to do this, I need to pin it where I can cut around the edges, and the way I was doing that was not going to work. Let's see, I'm going to have to pin in a little bit. I'm going to start down here. Try to keep this from shifting. I'm trying to keep it straight with the lines of my design that's in the fabric here. And you just want to pin it in place so you'll be able to just, oh, another really important thing. Pull on your fabric to see which direction it stretches, because you want it to stretch in this direction. So before you do this, make sure that your fabric will stretch in that direction, because if you pull on it, like this side does not move at all, but on this edge it moves. So make sure you're going to have the fabric stretching in this direction whenever you go to cut out your pattern, because that is very important. I'm glad I saw that they have that written on the pattern there to make sure anytime you're working with something like where you're going to be making a hat, you've got to make sure that the fabric stretches in the correct direction whenever you're cutting it out. Hats, or I think next month I have a neck warmer, and that's similar. it's a fleece material that you would cut that one out of too, and you would also want to make sure that it stretches in the correct direction for whenever you're doing your pattern. Okay, so I just want it to sit in place while I'm going to be cutting this out. And for those of you who just came to this is 2 pieces of fabric that I have, or it's just 1 piece of fabric that I folded in half. And then I'm just pinning my pattern in place. And this is an adult medium, which is 32 inches around the circumference of my head. I had to measure my head to make sure that I had the right size, because this one comes with all different sizes, and this is different colors to show you which sizes they are, and you'll cut it down to the size that you want. And like I said, you can always give me a call at the library, and I would be happy to email this pattern to you if you like. Or I could just give you the website that I got. I think I could find. Actually, they have it on the pattern, which is www.fleecefun.com. So if you wanted to go to that website and look for this pattern, you could find it on their website, because that's where I got it from. I'm going to turn this as I'm cutting it, because you're just going to need 2 pieces for this. This is a really, really simple pattern. If you're new to sewing, I would recommend, if you wanted to try doing a hat, if you wanted to start out with something that was not real intimidating, this is a really good one to try. Actually, I'm going to go back in this direction cut, because that was getting a little awkward cutting in that direction. And you want to have a good pair of fabric scissors, so it will cut all the way through both pieces of fabric. And always, when you're cutting out your patterns, the paper patterns, don't use your fabric scissors for that, because it will dull the scissors. So get some just cheap, regular, run-of-the-mill scissors to cut out your patterns with. They always recommend that you do that. And there's a little V in the top here, but I'm going to cut that out once I get the outer edges cut. Let's see, piece of. Alright, so I got that. So now I'm just going to cut the top of this. And I don't know, I got 1 piece. The other one didn't come quite loose. That's the bottom one. There we go. So now I've got that cut out. And let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and pull all of this out. I'm going to need to pin it back again, so once I get my pattern off of here. Alright, so now we got the pattern and it's cut out. And so I'm going to be sewing around these edges here. I am going to go ahead and pin a little bit at the bottom too, even though that's not an area I'm going to be sewing right now. I just don't want my fabric to shift a whole lot while I'm sewing around the other edges. So that's just getting my bottom of the pattern here. And I'm going to pin all of this together. And do make sure that you're pinning your right sides together, because this is the part that's facing out is going to be the inside of your fabric. So if you've got some fleece that's has a really visible, like, different look on one side and the other, pick the side that you want to be facing outwards on your hat. Some of them have a smoother look on one side and then a fuzzy side to it. So just depend on what you want. If you want it to look fuzzy on the outside and smooth on the inside, then make sure that your smooth sides are facing out if that's what you want on the inside. Alright, so we've got this pinned together, and so the next step for this is to, move my scissors over there, is to sew the edges. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew starting at the bottom edge and come up here, and then we're going to sew almost to this end, but not all the way. And we're going to leave a 1/2 inch seam, and we're going to do this on each side. So on this side you'll do the same thing. You'll sew all the way down here, but you do leave about, they say to leave about a finger's width between here and the V area. So we're going to sew to about right here, which that's about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more than a 1/2 inch. So that's what we're going to start with first. Once we get that part done, then we'll do the V part, and then we'll turn it right side out and do the bottom. This is really a straightforward, pretty easy pattern to do. And when you're sewing something like this, that you are doing like a hat that's going to be stretchy, you want to set your sewing machine stitch to a zigzag stitch. So what I did ahead of time before I got started with working on this, I got out a piece of old fleece that I had, and I played around with my zigzag stitch until I got it set on the type that I wanted. And I'm wanting kind of a smaller zigzag stitch that's a little close together, because originally when I was doing it, it was not as close together. It was a wider stitch. I was looking at the pictures from the person that did the pattern. They used about that type of stitch, and it still gives a good stretch. And that's what you want. If you do a straight stitch, when you go to pull on it, it's going to break the thread. Well, if you have really good thread, it won't break it, but it won't stretch. It'll keep your hat from stretching. So you want to set your setting for a zigzag stitch, where it will continue to be. If you like the look of the bigger zigzag, that is fine, because the inside of the hat won't be visible on what the zigzag looks like, but when we do the brim, it is going to be visible. So just be sure when you get to that part to set it the way you want it to show up and look on your hat. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this a little bit closer to where, well, I'm trying to drop this down just a tad, and I can't quite get to my, there we go. I'm having to move around my pedal and stuff down there. Alright, so once you get your zigzag stitch set the way you want it, you're going to start sewing, and I'm going to start with the bottom edge of one of the sides here, and I'm going to line it up. Let's see, did my fabric shift, or maybe I just didn't? It looked like the bottom, I guess I didn't. That little piece is sticking out a little bit further than the rest, but I can trim that up in a minute. So I'm going to start this out here, and they said a 1/2 inch seam, which mine's going to be, I need to move it over a little bit more to be about, yeah, I got to be careful, it's going to get hung up there. Don't want it to do that. I like to start with my needle in my fabric, and I'm going to do, I want to reinforce the bottom, so I'm going to back up and do my stitch at the bottom of the hat. getting somewhat close to the V area. Okay, so this is coming up on the V area. So they say about a finger length, so let's see here. I'm going to kind of move this so I can see that a little bit better. Yeah. So I'm going to come up to where my pin is at. Be very careful. And I'm going to back up my stitch to reinforce. Alright, so we got that. So I'm going to move that out of the way and cut it off. And then I'm actually just going to continue on to the other side, and I need a finger length, so I'm going to repin that to about the same and make sure that I pinned it all the way. Oh! Forgot to take the pin out of the other side. Alright, so where's my other piece of thread? Get that out of the way. So I want to start on the other side of that needle. Well, actually I like to back up a little bit, so I'm going to start it forward just a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to back up to where the pin is. I want one more stitch. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to come forward. Move that out of the way and go get that other needle. Okay. And I just realized I'm going to do a quick comment on here. I like to make sure that my comments are working on here in case anyone wants to do any questions while I'm doing this. I'll try to watch my screen while I'm sewing, so if you have questions I can hopefully stop and reply. And we're getting close to the bottom. And then I'll do a little bit of back stitching to reinforce the bottom. Alright, so that's done. And now that we did that, I'm going to just cut my little loose threads. Let me get my little small scissors. So get these little excess. I should have cut this one closer. And I'm probably going to have to unpin the bottom of the hat in order to pull apart the top. Because we're going to have to sew that little V area together. And that will make it kind of hard to do that if I don't get those pins pulled out. So get these little threads out of the way. Okay. All right. So now we're going to be pinning this V section together so we can sew it. So we want to pull it apart, and you're going to line up. And see, leaving that gap and a finger length away from the top, it makes it really easy to line those V's up. So I'm just going to pin one side, and you're going to start on one edge and then actually sew all the way across. I know that sounds kind of intimidating. It's like, how in the world are we going to do that? Okay, so we've got that V area pinned all the way across, and in order to do a good job of that, I'm going to open up these seams on both sides a little bit, so and we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam also, because we want to make sure that we come down far enough to go over. I'm carrying this over to the side, making it hard to see, but I was trying to see it myself. See where how far up I was doing my sewing there. We want to make sure that we're sewing where we're going to go over that, so we won't have a hole. So that's why I'm flattening out the seams, so we can see that when we sew across. So I'm going to start on one edge here, and 1/2 inch I'm going to put this in about the same spot that I had it when I was sewing earlier, and I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit so I can line this up better. Alright, so we're going to flatten that out, and I'm going to make sure my seam underneath is flattened out also. That'll make things a lot better once I start sewing. And I'm going to try to flatten my hat out as much as possible. Alright, so I'm going to sew forward, and I got little stitches that are trying to do weird stuff here. Come on. I almost lost where I was going here. Let me back up just a little bit. Yep, I'm not quite doing the 1/2 inch like I wanted to. Well, I'll correct it when I'm going forward. Now I'm going to get that out of the way. Okay, let's keep an eye on this hole here. We want to make sure we come across this area. So I'm going to shift that just a little bit, and I'm also going to fill underneath to make sure that everything is laying flat like it's supposed to. Okay. And it's going to get kind of hard for it to sew over it because this is a bulkier area. I'm looking, I'm like, I don't know if y'all can see what I'm seeing, so I'm going to shift this up a tiny bit so y'all will be above, so you can see a little bit better about what I'm talking about, to make sure there's my open space right there. I want to sew above it, because otherwise I'm going to have a hole. And it's making it really hard to see. So I'm going to lift up my foot and feel of it. I got awful close, so I'm going to pivot just a little bit. You can always go back over this if you don't quite. And it's going to have trouble. I'm going to lift that up just a little bit, going over this, because it's really, really thick material. Okay. I'll double check this in a minute to make sure. Alright. Need to get that out of the way so I don't run over my needle. And I'm going to put that in there so I can shift just a little bit, so I can sew down the edge here. And move that one out of the way. I'm going to sew all the way to the end. And I want to back up. Okay. So I'm going to double check this to make sure that I don't have a hole. If I do, I can sew back over that top area. So let's look and see. Get rid of this excess threads. And I got really close, but I do believe I made it. So I'm going to turn it right side out to check on it. Okay, so it did close. I didn't end up with a hole like I thought it would. So that did close it up. So now we've got a dome round top to our hat. So there we go. And everything's lined up nice and neat. You got a nice little cross area. Alright, so that's that part of the hat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the brim of the hat. And to do the brim, you're going to want to, let's see, turn the edge under 1 inch or less. It just depends on how much you want to do it. This is right side out, so probably to see what you're doing, you'd probably need to keep it wrong side out. But you're going to, depending on how big of a brim you want, they say at least pin it by about 1 inch or less. It just depends on how big you want your hat to be or how long you want it to be. So I'm going to pin it, and you want it to be the same all the way around. And when you get to the edges, you want to flatten out your seam so it will fold easier, like so. And it'll be easier to sew it in place too. So and you want to line up the seams together too when you're doing that. Let's see, make sure I got that. Pins are trying to get me. I'm going to do my other seam. Flatten out the seam and fold it over. And then pin it in place. So you can see I'm trying to make sure that it lines up. Okay, now I can do all the way around the hat. Okay, so once you get that pinned in place, then you're just going to sew around the top edge. And the reason the fleece doesn't typically fray, so normally on some fabric you would fold it twice and then sew it in place, but you don't have to worry about that with the fleece. It won't fray on you, so you don't have to worry about folding it twice. And of course you would, if that happened, you would have to make sure that you made it a little bit longer to account for doing it that way. Alright, so you're going to, I think I'm going to have to pull this part off of my machine so I can get it up under there better. And I'm going to start like right before one of the seamed areas. You want to line that up with the edge there. Do you want it to be kind of close to the top of that fabric? Okay. And you want to back up a few stitches to reinforce where you're starting. And try to keep this nice and flat. Get that pen out of the way. And I'm not pushing the fabric through, I'm letting the machine pull it through. You will get, it'll get bunched up if you push it through. I'm just guiding it. There are other hat patterns where you can do a lining. I just chose this one because it's a nice beginner's project where you don't have to do the lining. I'm getting close to my other seam, so you want to make sure everything's nice and flat. I'm going to kind of move that out of the way so it won't make it quite so bulky. And if you feel like it's going to have trouble going through, you can actually grab a hold of it from the other side and help pull it through, but very gently. Because if you pull on it too much, you don't want it to stretch out the material while you're sewing through it. Almost done, it looks like. Coming back around to the beginning. Okay, now I'm back up just a few stitches and we're done. Let me turn it right side out and cut off the threads here. And I can show you what we'll be doing next week and talk about the next programs for next month too. All right, so there we go. Just turn it right side out. And you can use, if you want the stitches to show up, you could always use something different. I used white thread on mine, but if you wanted it to kind of pop and be part of the, to show up, I could have chose like a green thread, and that would have looked cute around the edges too. But so now we got a nice rounded top hat there, fleece hat. And it's got a rounded, I guess I could grab my little mannequin head to kind of show you. Let's see. That gives you, because I don't look great in hats myself, so I don't want to model it. So there's the hat. It's kind of big for this. I didn't measure the head of the mannequin, but this would fit me. So there's our hat, and then let's see, and if you're interested in trying that out, just ask for Opal at the Nixon Library, and I'd be happy to get your email address and email it to you if you'd like to try it out. Or, like I said, the pattern here had the website on it, and the website, you could just go to it and get it. It's free. It's www.fleecefun.com. So if you wanted to get it from them, you can. And they've got the directions on how to do it. Next week, I'm going to show you, it's something a little different. We're not going to be sewing. let's see if you can see these. These are tiles that I did a marbled effect with. That's why they look so different. You take water and nail polish, and you can actually, I guess I tilt in it, you can kind of see that one a little bit better. This one has more vibrant colors. It just depends on how it falls in the water, and you can use toothpicks to kind of move it around, and then you lay the tile down in it, and it gives it a marbled effect. The reason why there's like a crisscross looking to this, to seal it after it's dried, you can use Mod Podge to paint over it, and I painted in different directions to give it that kind of checkered kind of look to it. And then you can always add some little foam pieces to the back and use them as coasters if you want. Let's see, yeah. And that's what we'll be doing next week. If you would like to get supplies for that one, I'll switch this back around. If you would like to try that one out, just call the library tomorrow and you can sign up for supplies for that one. You'll get at least one tile. If you want some fingernail polish, we could probably get you like 2 colors of inexpensive fingernail polish. I just got some from the Dollar General, I think it was, or Dollar Tree, yeah. And you just use a couple of colors, or you could do one color. It doesn't really matter. And then I'll give you like a little throwaway metal pie pan and some toothpicks, I think. Let me look at the supplies real quick. Make sure that I'm remembering everything correct. Yeah, you get a tile, pie pan, nail polish, toothpicks, gloves. You definitely need some gloves. And if you need some newspaper, I can give you some newspaper to go with that. And the only thing that you would need if you wanted to turn them into coasters and have the little felt things on the bottom, you could buy some of those. Or if you just had some felt at home and some glue, then you could just cut out your own little circles out of your felt and glue them to the bottom. Or you could glue a piece of felt all the way across the bottom of it if you wanted. And then you would need Mod Podge to seal it with, a sponge, a cheap sponge paintbrush to put the Mod Podge on. And you'll probably would want some paper towels while you were doing that, and also you're going to need water, of course, for your pan. But that's it, and I do not recommend pouring this water down your sink once you get done doing this, because that would not be good for the water system. We have a rocky area at the library that I just kind of dumped it out there. If you don't have a place that you would want to dump it outside, then I would recommend getting like a plastic cheap bucket and some kitty litter, and you could pour it in there in like put a plastic bag down in there first, and then put the kitty litter in there, and then pour your water out in there. And then when it evaporates and stuff, just throw that away in your trash. That's a good way to get rid of the water after you've got nail polish in it and stuff. So that's what we'll be doing next week. We'll give that a try, and then the week after that, in February, the 1st February one, we will be doing a neck warmer out of some more fleece material. And then the week after that, we'll be painting. Maybe we'll have some of these available for you to get, or I had a few that were an actual sign that you can hang that said love. You could get either one of those to paint, and some paint. And then I'm trying to remember what's after that. That'll be the 11th before Valentine's Day. Oh, and then the Thursday after that, we're going to do do-it-yourself wax fabric wraps. I'm excited to try that one out. It's actually beeswax and parchment paper and fabric. And what you do is you turn your fabric into a reusable like saran wrap that you can use over and over again. I think they said about 150 uses, that you could cover bowls and stuff with that. That'll be, I'm interested in trying that one out. And then the week after that, we'll do a sewing class again, which will be a travel sewing kit. I'll show you how to make it. It's kind of a neat triangle shaped one. It's just a little teeny tiny one that you could put some scissors and some buttons and some needles and stuff in it, or sewing thread and so forth. So that'll be everything for next month, and then we'll have March coming along, and I haven't quite planned those yet. So that's it for tonight, and I'll see y'all next week, and be sure to call tomorrow if you would like to sign up for some supplies for next week's program. Bye-bye.